She continued to work with such diligence that new lodges were soon formed in Britain, South America, Canada, India, Sri Lanka, Australia and New Zealand. Many called her the most important woman of ideas and the strongest speaker of her time. She fought for freedom of thought, workers' rights, women's rights, birth control and even for the independence of entire countries. Annie Besant. Annie Wood was born in London in 1847. At the age of 20, she married an aspiring priest, Frank Besant, whose last name she would bear for the rest of her life. They had 2 children. The family was poor, and the husband and his family insisted on having a 3rd child. This is just one of the situations that made Annie think that not only she, but a huge number of women suffer from oppression of their rights. From a young age, Annie began to fight for women's rights and various progressive humanistic values which the church viewed with extreme negativity. It's obvious that the end of her marriage with a cleric was only a matter of time. The couple were legally separated. In 1878, Frank Besant successfully argued her unfitness after Annie's public campaigning on contraception and had custody from then of both children. Such personal experience was clearly the starting point for Annie Besant's follow-up. Besant's public career began in 1874 with a speech on political status of women. Then, in 1876, Besant wrote a powerful publication revealing the essence of Christianity, its evidences, its origin, its morality, its history. Among other things, in this work Besant drew attention to the primitive and hypocritical nature of the Christian view. Besant opined that for centuries the leaders of Christian thought spoke of women as a necessary evil and that the greatest saints of the Church were those who despised women the most. In 1877, Besant and Charles Bradlaugh founded the Free Thought Publishing Company. Soon, for the fact that this company published the book The Fruits of Philosophy by Charles Knowlton, which revealed the idea of the ability of citizens to independently decide how many children they want, Besant and Bradlaugh were arrested and put on trial. The trial became a cause célèbre, and ultimately the verdict was overturned on a technical legal point. Besant and Bradlaugh stated, "We intend to publish nothing we don't think we can morally defend. All that we publish, we shall defend." Besant also co-founded the Malthusian League and supported it for 12 years. She advocated population control as an antidote to a future struggle for survival. A new chapter of her life began in 1889, when Besant, as a journalist, was asked to write a review of the 2-volume Secret Doctrine of Helena Blavatsky, which had attracted a lot of attention. Annie was impressed with what she had read and decided to interview Helena in Paris. Thus, Besant was involved in Theosophy and soon became a member of the Theosophical Society. And in 1891, after the death of Blavatsky, Besant became one of the leaders of the Theosophical Society. By the will of Helena Blavatsky, Besant became head of the esoteric school of the Theosophical Society. If Blavatsky created the ideas of the Theosophists and their philosophy, it was Besant who turned Theosophy into a great movement and became its popularizer. In her autobiography, she described herself as marching towards the Theosophy that would be the glory of her life. It was Annie Besant who took responsibility to complete and publish the 3rd volume of Blavatsky's Secret Doctrine, which Helena had not had time to finish. However, many Theosophists and disciples of Blavatsky criticized Annie for having supposedly hastily finished the 3rd volume of Blavatsky, thus adding more confusion to Blavatsky's already complex and incomprehensible works. An interesting fact from Besant's biography. In 1895, Charles Webster, an influential figure in Theosophical Society, and her colleague claimed he had taught Annie Besant clairvoyance. After that, together with Annie, they used their powers to explore the universe, the thought forms and the history of humanity. These events resulted in the books Occult Chemistry and Thought Forms. Whether this was true or a great publicity stunt to sell the books, we can only guess, but the story sounds intriguing enough. Besant and Freemasonry. In 1902, Annie decided to join the Masons as well. Using the Theosophy's connections in France, she came to Paris to visit Masons together with her 6 friends. They were all initiated, passed and raised into the first 3 degrees, and Annie returned to England, bearing a charter, and founded there the first lodge of international mixed masonry, Le Droit Humain. Besant saw Freemasonry as an extension of her interest in the rights of women and the greater brotherhood of men. She called it a movement which practiced true brotherhood, in which women and men worked side by side for the perfecting of humanity. In a very short time, Annie founded 3 new lodges in London, 3 in south of England, 3 in the northwest, and 1 in Scotland. She continued to work with such a diligence that new lodges were soon formed in Britain, South America, Canada, India, Sri Lanka, Australia and New Zealand. As you can see, the purchase of franchise was successful. Annie Besant not only founded the British Federation of the International Order, but also became a great commander of the order, having a key influence on the international development and growth of the order. The British Masons, influenced by theosophical ideas, have restored some Masonic practices not required by the French Rite, in particular the requirement to believe in God or the Supreme Being. The permission for this restoration in the English Charter obtained from France is known as the Annie Besant Agreement. In 1904 a new English Charter was created, and this requirement was approved as the main one. The resultant charter was called Dharma Working. It attempted to restore the importance of the esoteric and mystical aspects, which Theosophists regarded as the main part of Freemasonry. This made the order mostly spiritually oriented organization, and therefore people often called it occult Freemasonry. Besant, who is of Irish origin, has published extensively and supported the Irish Home Rule movement. She also met several times with representatives of this movement, who have subsequently achieved their goals. But most of her colossal work she did in India. Annie awakened Indian national consciousness, suppressed by the colonial policies of the British Empire. In 1902 Besant had written, "India is not ruled for the prospering of the people, but rather for the profit of her conquerors, and her sons are being treated as a conquered race." Besant managed to combine her theosophical and political activities by becoming a member of the National Congress of India. This is the place for the annual policy debate, which was then reviewed by the British Parliament of India. In 1916, Besant founded the All India Home Rule League. The league organized a structure of local branches, which began to conduct demonstration, public meetings and agitation. She set up a central Hindu college in Varanasi and foundation that raised funds for education of Indian people to restore the local intellectual elite. In June 1917, Besant was arrested at one of the British Empire's hill stations in India for raising the flag of India there. Subsequently, her arrest became the boiling point that caused protests of local organizations and population. As a result, the British Parliament was forced to make concessions and declare that the ultimate goal of British rule was Indian self-rule, and steps were promised in that direction. Besant was released 3 months later, and the people from all across India applauded her. She then became president of the National Congress of India for 1 year. Local figures like Mahatma Gandhi treated Besant with great respect and gratitude. It is Gandhi, who was also demanding Annie's release, will take Besant's place in Congress and be the main driving force behind future events led to India's independence. By the way, Besant opposed child marriage and caste-based society in India. Annie died in India in 1931, but before that she devoted many years to her project called World Teacher. It's his personal history we will be talking about next Tuesday in a separate video, so subscribe. Thank you for watching, leave your comments and suggestions for the following stories.